Somewhere in the Nevada desert, beneath cracked earth baked by a sun that shows no mercy, there's a cave shaped like the letter M. A cave that Kenny Veach claimed hummed with a force that stopped him cold. In 2026, his name is trending again. Pulled back into cultural consciousness by the latest season of Stranger Things, which drew direct inspiration from his story. Millions of new viewers are now asking the same question that investigators, hikers, and internet researchers have been asking for over a decade. What happened to the man who found that cave? Because Kenny Veach didn't just disappear. He warned everyone he was going back, and then he left one final, chilling instruction. Don't come looking for me. The Nevada desert around Las Vegas is not a place that forgives mistakes. The terrain is brutal, crumbling rock faces, abandoned mine shafts hidden beneath loose gravel, temperatures that swing 50 degrees between noon and midnight. Most people see it and turn around. Kenny Veach saw it and walked in. A Las Vegas resident and seasoned desert explorer, Kenny had spent years navigating some of the most remote terrain in the American Southwest. He documented his expeditions on his YouTube channel, Snake Bitch. Solo hikes through landscapes that most people only see from an airplane window. Dry lake beds, canyon walls, restricted perimeters. Kenny had a particular fixation on the land surrounding Nellis Air Force Base, home to the most restricted airspace in the United States and the facility that houses the infamous Area 51. Where others saw warning signs and turned back, Kenny saw a challenge. He was, by any measure, not a man who scared easily. That makes what he wrote in October of 2014 all the more unsettling. It started the way so many strange things do now, with a comment on the internet. Kenny was responding to a YouTube video about Area 51 when he typed something that, at the time, probably felt like just another story from the trail. He wrote that during a hike near Nellis Air Force Base, he had found a cave. The entrance, he said, was shaped like a perfect capital M. He went to enter it, as he always did with caves. But before he could get inside, something stopped him. His entire body began to vibrate. Not a tremor, not a dizzy spell. A full body vibration that intensified the closer he moved towards the entrance. Kenny Veach, a man who had explored hundreds of caves without hesitation, turned around and ran. He called it one of the strangest things that had ever happened to him. The internet did not take that well. Hundreds of replies flooded in. Liar, fraud, coward. The mob demanded proof. They demanded he go back. Day after day, the comments kept coming, eroding the reputation Kenny had spent years building as a serious explorer. For a man whose entire identity was rooted in conquering the desert, the public humiliation was unbearable. Eventually, he snapped. In a follow-up comment, Kenny Veach wrote, "I'll be going back to look for the M cave. I won't be long. If I don't return, don't come looking for me." Those words were posted in late October 2014. On November 10th, Kenny drove his Honda Ridgeline to a trailhead near Nellis Air Force Base and walked into the desert. He was never seen again. Kenny's girlfriend, Sherry Pilgrim, wasn't immediately alarmed. Kenny often stayed out overnight. He was experienced, he knew the terrain. But as hours stretched into days with no contact, no call, no check-in, nothing, she knew something was wrong. Kenny was meticulous about staying in touch, especially on longer hikes. She contacted the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department on November 12th, 2 days after he'd left. What followed was an investigation defined as much by what couldn't be searched as what could. The proximity to active federal military installations created jurisdictional complications from the start. Large sections of the most relevant terrain were simply off-limits to civilian search teams. The desert swallowed sound and footprints in equal measure. For 12 days, there was nothing. Then, on November 22, 2014, searchers found Kenny's cell phone. It was at the bottom of a vertical mine shaft, approximately 20 feet deep. The shaft was located several miles from where Kenny had parked his truck, in an area that required significant hiking to reach. There was no body in the shaft, no gear, no signs of a struggle on the surface above. Just the phone. And here is where the first open wound appears in this case, one that has never properly healed. The phone had been damaged, but it was still partially functional. And when investigators examined its memory, they found that everything had been wiped. Every photo, every video, every text message from Kenny's final days, gone. The official explanation was damage from the fall and desert exposure. Technology experts who examined the case were not satisfied with that answer. Modern smartphones are built to retain data through significant physical trauma. The specific pattern of memory corruption found on Kenny's phone was, according to multiple sources, more consistent with intentional wiping than with accidental damage. A phone at the bottom of a shaft, no body, no data, no answers. That is where the official investigation, for the most part, ended. Independent searchers refused to let it rest. Frustrated by the limited official response, amateur investigators began deploying drones over the desert terrain surrounding the mine shaft. What the footage revealed reshaped the conversation entirely. The area around Nellis Air Force Base is honeycombed with abandoned mine shafts, some dating back to the gold rush era of the late 1800s. But these aren't isolated holes in the ground. Many connect to extensive underground tunnel networks that stretch for miles beneath the desert surface. A vast, unmapped labyrinth running directly beneath restricted military land. The drone footage also captured something harder to explain away. Clear signs of recent human activity in areas that should have been completely untouched. Tire tracks, footprints, what appeared to be equipment staging areas, and at dozens of cave entrances throughout the region, many matching the general description of what Kenny had called the M Cave. The cameras documented fresh concrete barriers, metal gates, and what appeared to be artificially triggered rock falls. Satellite imagery analysis later suggested that the majority of these barriers were installed in the months immediately following Kenny's disappearance. That is a fact, and make of it what you will. Everything you have heard up to this point is documented. The phone, the shaft, the wiped data, the sealed caves, the drone footage. These are not rumors. They are the verified foundation of a case that remains officially unsolved. What comes next is where the documented record ends and where the theories begin. Theory 1, the accident. The simplest explanation is that Kenny Veach fell into one of the hundreds of unmapped mine shafts that lace the desert floor. His phone separated from him during the fall, or was dropped near the shaft beforehand. His body remains underground in a section of tunnel that has never been fully searched. The wiped phone was environmental damage. The sealed caves were routine safety work by agencies already aware of the hazardous terrain. It is possible. The Nevada desert has claimed experienced hikers before, but Kenny's own behavior in the weeks before his disappearance complicates this theory significantly. Jerion Pilgrim described a man growing increasingly unsettled. Strange phone calls, callers who hung up without speaking, evidence that someone had gone through his camping gear, though nothing was taken. In his final videos, Kenny mentioned feeling watched during his hikes. He claimed to have seen unmarked vehicles in areas where no civilians should have been present. This was not a man walking casually into the desert. This was a man who sensed, on some level, that something had changed. Theory 2. Government involvement. The land surrounding Nellis Air Force Base has been used for classified military testing since the 1950s. Nuclear weapons, experimental aircraft, programs whose names still don't appear in declassified records. Multiple anonymous sources, some claiming former military backgrounds, have alleged that the underground tunnel networks in the area connect to active classified facilities, that the vibrations Kenny experienced near the M cave entrance were not geological, that they were mechanical, the byproduct of equipment no civilian was meant to encounter. If that is true, then Kenny Veach didn't just find a cave, he found a door. Several researchers who investigated the case publicly reported break-ins targeting only materials related to Kenny's disappearance. Others claimed their files were remotely deleted. The pattern, if real, describes an organized effort to suppress a specific line of inquiry. It is worth noting that at least 6 other hikers have vanished in the same general area since the 1990s. All experienced solo explorers, several of whom had expressed interest in cave systems before disappearing. Theory 3. The vibrations were real and dangerous. This theory requires no conspiracy. Multiple witnesses, including individuals with reported military backgrounds, have described identical physical experiences near cave entrances in this region: full body vibration, nausea, an overwhelming instinct to flee. The consistency of these accounts across unconnected individuals is difficult to dismiss as mass suggestion. The desert around Nellis is not geologically inert. Decades of underground weapons testing have fractured the rock and left behind infrastructure whose effects on the surrounding terrain are not fully public. Whether those effects could produce the sensations Kenny described, and whether prolonged exposure to them could be harmful, remains an open question that no official body has chosen to answer. Kenny Veach's YouTube channel is still online. His final video, posted just days before November 10th, 2014, shows him preparing his pack, checking his gear, speaking to the camera with the quiet focus of someone who knows what they're walking into. He called it the most important hike of his life. The comment section has become something between a memorial and an ongoing investigation. Hikers share coordinates. Researchers post satellite comparisons. People who never met Kenny Veach argue late into the night about what is buried beneath that desert. The M cave has never been officially found or confirmed. The phone data has never been recovered. Kenny's body has never been located. And no agency has ever offered a complete explanation for what happened between November 10th and November 22nd, 2014. What we are left with is a man who encountered something that frightened him deeply, and then, pressured by strangers on the internet, went back to prove he wasn't afraid. The Nevada desert is a landscape built on secrets, classified programs, unmarked graves, tunnels that don't appear on any public map. Whether Kenny Veach discovered one of those secrets or simply wandered into the wrong piece of that unforgiving terrain may never be known. But his warning, "If I don't return, don't come looking for me," has echoed for over a decade now. And no one has come back with answers.